one of the kind of mind-blowing things from your book was what you talked about related to the movie A Beautiful Mind and the story of John Nash, because that was always one of my favorite movies. So I'm 36 now, and so when that movie came out, I was like maybe 14, 15 years old, and that was actually one of the first movies that made me realize I loved psychology with all my heart, and it was fascinating to me. A Beautiful Mind. And in that movie, as you talk about, there is a line where it's something to the effect of someone asking John Nash like how he recovered, and in the movie he says something like, I started taking the newer meds. But the truth of John Nash was that he stopped taking the meds, and that was crucial for his recovery, according to himself. And I just thought, wow, like this is just such a concrete example of perpetuating the narrative along in the culture that, you better not come off your meds. You need to be on them for the rest of your life. And I understood, like you said, one of the, I guess, movie producers' moms was a psychologist who suggested that if they told the truth in the movie that he came off of his meds, then you would have people suddenly coming off their meds, and that could be problematic. And perhaps that was why they basically lied in the movie. But I just wanted to bring that up and like appreciate and thank you for adding that into this book, because it blew my mind. It was just such a perfect
Right.
example.
I think people again have to understand how powerful politics is. And the people who were making that movie, Ron Howard and the screenwriter whose parents, was a psychologist, they well understood the politics, and they understood what was really interesting for me. They could have just left out that whole scene. They could have just said, avoided the whole reality that John Nash, actually got his act together, without the help, him and his family. As I go into the book, his wife really thought that the psychiatric hospitalizations made things worse, that they really had a negative feeling about psychiatric treatment, which you don't get from that movie at all. You get it from the book, by the way. If you read the book, Sylvia Nasser's book on A Beautiful Mind, this is all in there, but not in the movie. And it was clear to those guys who were making the movie that the psychiatry, the pharmaceutical and psychiatric industrial complex, the media that they control through their advertising dollars, they had so much power that for them to be in any way casting aspersions on psychiatry, that this movie may not even get made, or if it would get made, politically, it wasn't going to win any Oscar, okay, which is what it did. And so, but what's interesting for me was not only, I thought like, well, just leave it out. Why do you have to lie? Just leave out the fact that he stopped taking the medication. But they actually had to insert basically a product placement for drugs, where you have Nash saying, I take the newer medication. And I thought, wow, that would be appalling for a guy like Spinoza, who I was actually, all of these things I was trying to look at through the lens of Spinoza. Now, wow, what power. This is like the same kind of power that the clergy had in his day, that they have the power to like fabricate and make up, lies about reality. And and Nash, you could go on YouTube videos and find interviews with him. It's not only in the book, and he's pretty cool about it. He doesn't flip out about it. He says it's just not true, that he went off, and what's really also sad too, as I make clear in the book, was not only is that lie sad, but what's missing is what's really fascinating is how Nash did get his act together. How he did move from really being quite, having these bizarre beliefs, believing like this, he was sent by the CIA here, or, that he was sent by extraterrestrials to save America, and on and on. And how did he move out of these delusions into having a good life? And I think that's incredibly valuable for people who are going through these episodes, how he actually got into this thing, which I talk about, how he got into that head and how he came out of it. And so, that movie and psychiatry in general just deprives people of some, not only truths, but some really fascinating, fun stuff to think about.
What's your short summary of how he did, in fact, recover?
Well, what Nash says, a couple of things. Nash says is that he realized that it was almost impossible for him to get rid of these voices or these delusions. And he uses the analogy, like he treated them like dieting. Like he treated these things like they were just like bad calories, and he wasn't going to take them seriously. And he wasn't, and he was just like, if he had these strange ideas go through his head, he wasn't going to be controlled by them. And he also came to the conclusion that he went too deep into the rabbit hole of politics, and that's what made him crazy, and that he got back into doing math. He's one of the earliest computer users. Some friends gave him a computer, and he started to really delve into that. The other hugely satisfying thing, and they were somewhat accurate in the movie about this, was incredibly helpful for him, was that he was lucky enough to, when he was still kind of a little bit bizarre and crazy, to be in that Princeton academic community where he had a lot of supportive relationships, where his eccentricity wasn't viewed as so crazy. I mean, back not that many years before, you had Einstein walking around campus, talking to himself, and like, you can be a little bit more bizarre as a mathematician and a physicist in that kind of world. And so people didn't give up on him. His wife didn't give up on him. So that part of the movie was accurate. The fact that he did that, the support was incredibly helpful. But there's interesting that what they didn't talk about was the other interesting cognitive things that he did. And what they did talk about, which was completely unhelpful, was all kind of psychiatric treatment, including the medication. By the way, one of the things that is in the book that people could find, that his sister, they were told he should get electroshock, and his sister and wife said, no, that's going to ruin his brain, and he'll never be able to recover, because that's the most important, valuable thing for him, his ability to think. And they were proud of themselves that they fought off the electroshock, because once he moved into a state of recovery, he could still think pretty clearly. And they weren't going to put that in any movie.
Right. It's shocking to me that electroshock treatment is still used and justified. You can go on YouTube right now and just look at various clinics and listen to doctors justify the use of that treatment. It's kind of unbelievable.